Greetings, this is Reverend Bob Zanicki, the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the midweek, more the latter week meditation this particular week. Hopefully I'll be on time next week with this, even though we'll be away, but I'm hoping to still share with you sometime in the middle part of next week, some from the ocean area. Okay, I'm not going in, but I'll enjoy to see the waves and listen to the sea. So anyhow, it's great to have you listening once again, watching. Last Sunday, we had a wonderful service at First Presbyterian Church. Our guest vocalist and instrumentalist there, Pastor Wes Poole, who sang for us many years in our choir, now the pastor at the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, was able to come over in between his work there on Sunday mornings and visit with us and share his beautiful voice. And then Christiane Vida was also with us, sharing her tremendous talent. And so if you didn't yet listen to and view the service, I just hope you will. And that I talked about James's the book of James, the letter of James in our Bible, and on the importance of it's not important only to have faith, but also to have works. They go together. They're non-negotiable in terms of being separate. They have to be together. So why don't you spend 45 minutes or so listening and enjoying and learning and being inspired. Wonderful. So last week we were continuing to journey along the lines of the progress of the early development of Christianity. And Paul has become a central figure in this now in the book of Acts. And so I just finished up last week talking a little bit about how he and Barnabas had a disagreement, and they broke up, they split up, and they both continued their ministries, but separately. And Paul came across a new friend, and Paul became the mentor of young Timothy, and you probably recognize that name, Timothy, in that we have two what we call pastoral writings in the New Testament, 1st and 2nd Timothy, and these are attributed to Paul's influence in terms of Paul either writing these or his influence being behind the writing of those two pastoral texts that we have called 1st and 2nd Timothy. So in any event, what has happened is that Paul continues on his missionary journey, on his mission to share the good news of Christ. He's so excited about his calling, his understanding that Christ has now opened the way, God has opened the way for not only Jews to understand the way to live, the way to express one's life and live one's life, but also the Gentiles, the pagans, now have this opportunity through Jesus Christ, through Jesus the Messiah, Jesus the Anointed One. So he's on his way with Timothy now, and he's traveling, and his plan apparently was to go to the east, but it turned out that wasn't to be the case. We pick up here in chapter 16, verse 4. As they, referring to Paul and Timothy, as they went from town to town, sharing this great news, this good news, they delivered to them for observance the decisions that had been reached by the apostles and elders who were in Jerusalem, that letter that I noted the last couple of weeks. So the churches, these little gathering bodies of people, communities, the churches were strengthened in the faith and increased in numbers daily. Then it says, they went through the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been forbidden by the Holy Spirit to speak the word in Asia. Again, they were apparently going to the east, but that was not to be the case. When they had come opposite Mysia, They attempted to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. So passing by Mysia, they went down to Troas. Troas is a port city, okay, to the west. During the night, Paul had a vision. There stood a man of Macedonia, pleading with him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." When he had seen the vision, he immediately tried to cross over to Macedonia, being convinced that God had called us to proclaim the good news to them. It says, we set sail from Troas and took a straight course to Samothrace, the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi. Keep in mind, there's also a letter to the Philippians. Paul wrote that. He began a church in Philippi. And in point of fact, most all agree that Philippians, the people, the church at Philippi, were extremely close to Paul. Paul was just so elated with them. Now, I'm sure he loved the other churches that he started, but there seemed to be something, just the way he phrases things in the letter to the Philippians about them. And so this is the mentioning here of the church beginning in Philippi, which is a leading city in the district of Macedonia and a Roman colony. It says, we remained in this city for some days. On the Sabbath, we went outside the gate by the river, where we supposed there was a place of prayer, and we sat down and spoke to the women who had gathered there. A certain woman named Lydia, a worshiper of God, was listening to us. She was from the city of Thyatira and a dealer of purple cloth. Well, it goes on to say, the Lord opened her heart to listen eagerly to what was said by Paul. When she and her household were baptized, she urged us, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come and stay at my home. And she prevailed upon us. Did you notice there, it mentioned Lydia, a worshiper of God. That is a direct announcement that she was not Jewish by background, but she was a worshiper of God, of the Hebrew God, the Jewish God, the one God, this ethical monotheism. And so she is now being brought in by Paul, by the good news, the message of Christ. But she is one of those, another phrase that has been used, a God-fearer. She was a God-fearer. Again, someone that was not Jewish, a pagan, who was willing to do a 180-degree turn, because paganism was so different from Judaism, and going from a multiplicity of gods all over the place, inside the home, outside the home, in the city, in the Roman Empire, up through to the certain understanding of the emperors at one point being gods. Okay, so in any event, Lydia gets mentioned here as someone converting to the way of following Christ, the way. One day, as we were going to the place of prayer, we met a slave girl who had a spirit of divination and brought her owners to a great deal of money by fortune telling. Oh, that's still around, as far as I know. While she followed Paul and us, she would cry out, "These men are slaves of the Most High God, who proclaim to you a way of salvation." Well, it goes on to say, she kept doing this for many days, but Paul I love this, just showing how human these folks are. It says, but Paul, very much annoyed, turned and said to the spirit in this woman, again, this idea of demons being inside people, "I order you in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her." And it came out that very hour. And then, some intrigue coming. But when her owners saw that their hope of making money was gone, this slave girl is no more value. She doesn't have this divination talent any longer, okay? When they realized that, they seized Paul, okay, and Silas, and who was also with them, and dragged them into the marketplace before the authorities. When they had brought them before the magistrates, they said, "These men are disturbing our city. They are Jews and are advocating customs that are not lawful for us as Romans to adopt or observe." Again, we can easily read over this in our day and age, but the Jews within the Roman Empire were allowed latitude in terms of worshiping their one God, and that because they were an old religious tradition, the Romans respected that, just like the Romans respected a lot of the Greek thinking. Although they had overtaken the Greeks, they kept a lot of their culture, a lot of their thinking, their philosophy, and such. But this shows that what was going on here on a cultural level, that there was this distinction, and that now keep in mind also, this early stage, the Romans knew no difference. They understood no difference between being a follower, a Jewish follower of Yahweh, or their one God, or being a follower of this Christos, this Christ, this Jesus, this Jewish Jesus. And point of fact, there were many others, even within Judaism, of course, there was that identification, that's not us. Others were not sure yet, but there was this questioning of well, wait a minute, are these people Jewish, or are they something different? As time goes on, there is that split, there is that bona fide difference, designation. So anyhow, they're saying that these folks are basically encouraging us to break the law, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, breaking the law. Generally speaking, it's not. The way to fix laws are to get them changed if they're bad laws, but not to break them. And so here there's this ambiguity, okay? The crowd joined in attacking them, and the magistrates had them stripped of their clothing and ordered them to be beaten with rods. After they had given them a severe flogging, they threw them into prison and ordered the jailer to keep them securely. Following these instructions, he put them in the innermost cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. Well, what happens here further on is that it turns out that there's an earthquake, and their chains are broken. And Paul and Silas could leave. They could have left the prison, but they didn't. And you can read further on your own here. But they stayed. Okay. Well, the guard that came in and saw that he figured they had run away. They were gone, but no, they had stayed there. And when he saw that, he was moved, and he himself and his family become Christian. They become followers of Christ because of the fact that these men stayed there, because it would have cost the jailer his life. Okay. So we have that happening. And then in the morning, when the morning came, at verse 35, magistrates sent the police saying, "Let those men go." And the jailer reported the message to Paul, saying, "The magistrates sent word to let you go. Therefore come out now and go in peace." But here's further intrigue, which we'll talk more about next week. But Paul replied, "They have beaten us in public, uncondemned, men who are Roman citizens." And there was within the Roman history of Rome, there were times when very, very few people were citizens, but at another time, by the time we're talking about now, more people were given the privilege of being a citizen of Rome. And such was Paul and his family, his parents and such, okay? They have beaten us in public, uncondemned, men who are Roman citizens, and have thrown us into prison, and now they are going to discharge us in secret? Certainly not. Let them come and take us out themselves. Well, this causes quite a stir. The people that had thrown them into prison got very nervous, and they weren't sure, what should we do? We made a mistake here. It certainly wasn't out of religious conviction. It was out of conviction that we may have gotten ourselves into some trouble, because these are indeed Roman citizens. So, my friends, I'll conclude there, and I hope your weekend goes well. If you're able, I hope you'll be able to come to church on Sunday morning. If you're not able to be there, I would encourage you to listen and watch on live streaming or on the video later that day or throughout the week. I'll be sharing with you all from Deuteronomy, a little bit of Ezra also. in terms of the theme being because we're going back to school. People are going back to school, although in different permutations, of course, because of the virus. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of education, the importance of study, and how pivotal that has been in the history of the Christian church. So, my friends, God bless you, and I hope to see you soon. And again, if I can ever be of some help to you, please you let me know. Bye-bye.